Good afternoon, everyone. This is very exciting for me. This is JoAnn Shaklee Master Coordinator, and I have a very dear friend with me today to share her American success story. This is called Tips from the Top, and we will be having a conversation along with Lauren Borzorgmeyer, who will be being introduced to JoAnn's story. And JoAnn Boltinghouse and Dr. Earl Boltinghouse have been longtime friends of ours. They're fabulous leaders, fabulous friends. And I'm going to just turn it over to you, JoAnn, rather than belabor this introduction. So, welcome.
Well, thank you, JoAnn. It's great. I'm just kind of pretending that we're sitting at your kitchen table because
Great.
That's how I talk to most people, and it's great to get to know Lauren. I guess if you were to look at my story to begin with, you know, we always say things happen by choice, not chance. And so my life began as a choice, but not my own choice. I was the second child of an unwed mother, and when she found she was pregnant with me, she decided she could not keep me. And our children often say, gee, Mom, if abortion had been legal in 1936, we probably wouldn't be here. But she chose to have me and leave me at the Salvation Army Hospital in Omaha, Nebraska. And when I was a little less than 2 months old, some wonderful people adopted me. And my dad used to say, we picked you out. And I had visions of them walking up and down the aisle in the hospital, looking at babies and saying, we want that one. And so I always grew up knowing that I was special. But I always felt like I had to work really extra hard to be thought worthy of that chance that I had. And so little did I know, I went through high school, college, met my husband in college, and we were back in Harlan, Iowa, a little town of 5,000. And one of our friends from Council Bluffs, Iowa, had said, when Earl gets out of dental school, we're going to come to Harlan to have our dental work done. So Mavis came to Harlan one day, and this is what she brought, a quart of basic age. And this is what it looked like back then. And that will be 50 years in September. And little did I know what was in that quart of basic age. You know, I thought we were buying a cleaner, and we did everything from scrub the floor and wash the kids and wash the lettuce and wash the windows and everything with that quart of basic age. But then some of the things that it enabled us to do was to build the home of our dreams. And when we got this house built,
Move the slide, Lauren. Yeah. Right.
When we got this house built, we didn't have a lot of furniture in it. And so this was on 50 acres and it was all timber in the back. And our grandkids used to say they like to come to Grandpa and Grandma's and go out in the forest. And so it wasn't really a forest, but it was on the top of a hill. And so my first really goal in Shaklee was I wanted furniture for my living room. I wanted all new furniture. And Earl said, well, when you can pay for it, you can get it. Because I had picked all these things out. And so I thought, well, that's easy enough. I'll just go to work and get it. And by that time, I was a school teacher. And the last year that I taught, I made more in Shaklee part-time than I did teaching full-time. And so that was when I made the decision that I wasn't going to renew my contract because my kids they were in activities, but they were activities that were sometimes during the school hours, and I couldn't go to them. So in I believe it was 1973, I turned my contract in unsigned. And so I became Mrs. Shaklee in Harlan, Iowa at that time.
Well, that's interesting. That's when I joined Shaklee too in March of 1973 as a yoga teacher. What were you teaching in school?
I taught 3rd grade when Earl was in dental school, and then I substituted, and then I taught 1st grade for 4 years in Harlan when our youngest started to school. Then I taught 1st grade. and I taught 4-H, and I love teaching. I love kids. I love teaching them to read. I mean, it's so exciting. But
Well, that is, speaking of reading, that's another one of your talents is you've written a children's book.
right, right. And that kind of was, it kind of went to my advocacy for children, that everybody have a chance, and that it's kind of an anti-bullying. It actually has we rescued greyhounds, and it actually had one of my greyhounds as the central character, but it really wasn't a story, or isn't a story about a dog. It's a story about how do you feel when you get teased? How do you feel? Because I can remember in college, one of my roommates one time said, "Why do you call them your parents? They're not your parents. They
Oh,
just adopted you." And, you know, they were my parents. And I always say I had two mothers, one who gave me life and one who taught me how to live.
oh, that's beautiful.
I couldn't have done it without either one of them.
Yes, well, that's a special story. And then, of course, beautiful Shaklee came into your life, and you were able to obviously furnish your home.
That's right. I bought my furniture. That was the first thing. Then if you want to look at the next slide, besides that home, we've had, this is Shaklee car number 24. And for just Earl and I. And two of our children have been involved, and they've had Shaklee bonus cars also. And travel was always one of my hot buttons. I really didn't, I really wasn't looking at the money as much as I was the lifestyle. And so the next two pictures, every time Shaklee sent us on a trip, they gave us a plate. And so we have these up in my office in Harlan before we moved, and we had on two walls 3 plate rows like that with all the plates from all the places we'd been.
Well, I see England. Of course, we went to Hawaii a lot.
Yeah.
What are some of those places that you went?
Well, Hawaii, several different times, Switzerland a couple times, Germany, England, Denmark,
Mexico. What's the yellow with the red there? Is that Mexico?
That might be.
Yeah.
And,
So I know Switzerland. Did you go to
and
Rome?
then some of them are cruises. The one picture in the bottom there is, they always took a picture of the cruise and sent us of everybody on the cruise. So that's there. I just wanted to kind of give this as an overview of the kinds of trips. We figured out one time that we had over 100 trips that were all paid for. And now, of course, we have the conference. So the next picture was last year in Las Vegas of Earl and I. And Jeff was with us. We've added him to our DVA. But this is the lifestyle. Where else in Harlan, Iowa, a little farm town, and we lived in the middle of the cornfields and the soybean fields, do you get dressed up in lace and rhinestones and a tux with a dinner jacket? And that just wasn't the lifestyle before Shaklee. But every year we love to get dressed up.
Well, a funny story about Earl is that when you and Terry were on the Masters Executive Board Committee, Earl and I were sort of hanging out together in New Orleans. So we had a good chance to walk through New Orleans, which was very eye-opening. We went into some back streets, which was fun. So it was which was great to get to know him. And what was also beautiful about all these trips that Shaklee provides us, Lauren, is that many times we were taking our children with us, and we were able to take it. So our children have traveled the world. And so Shaklee has the ability, and JoAnn mentioned DBA, that's doing business as. So you can add people as when your children get older, you can also add them. They can inherit the business as well, right, JoAnn?
Right. And Earl is 87 and I just turned 84. So we are in a different place in our life. And when we first started out, everyone had inventory. You sold off of your shelves. People came and picked up products, or we shipped them. But a year ago, about 14 months ago, we moved out of our home into a retirement center in the Houston, Texas area. And so now we are doing actually more volume with my iPhone and my computer. I place all the orders, they're all shipped from Shaklee. And so it just makes it so much easier. And now Jeff has added, we've added Jeff, one of our sons, and he's doing a lot of the technical stuff, doing the newsletters, doing some of those things. And it leaves me free to do the contact with the people and do some of that training, like on Zoom calls and so forth. So the business is really easy to do now, but you can't rest and think, well, it's easy, so I don't have to do anything. It's still people contact. And if I have time, I'll share a little story that happened to me today. But in this retirement, these last two pictures, we have a lot of things. This was Halloween last year, and we dressed up. And one of our friends, Shaw, was dressed as a referee, and Earl and I dressed as Iowa Hawkeyes. And so Earl had his football, and we had our Hawkeye cup and so forth. And so we have lots of activities in our clubhouse. So we're able to enjoy those retirement years. And then this was in the clubhouse at Christmas. And that wound up becoming our Christmas card picture. But we're enjoying the lifestyle that we've worked for. And so that's kind of a little pictorial of what's happened to us since that first quarter basic age, almost 50 years ago.
And if you were to put a value on what that quarter basic age, how much did you pay for it at that time?
Probably about $2.50.
And how much would you say you've earned in your Shaklee business over the years?
Millions. I know that we have analyzed our business as far as value is concerned, and we looked the other day and kind of figured that in order for us to be receiving the bonus checks we're receiving now, and we don't have the biggest organization in Shaklee, although we're growing again, we probably would have to have about $4.5 to $5 million in the bank in order to be receiving the income that we do every month. And so it's a lot easier to work with people and help people than to amass that amount of money. I mean, we were both an only child, so we've taken care of our parents. When they ran out of money, we did not have to put them on Medicaid or state aid or anything. We took the money out of our account and we paid for them. I figured that the nursing home that we had my mother and his dad in for the last 3 or 4 years of their lives, I paid them over $1 million.
And that's all through your Shaklee funds.
And we could do that because we had Shaklee, we had that as our retirement, our backup, and so we were able to do that. And we've been able to help our grandchildren and just be able to do some of the things. And it was kind of funny because when I first saw the business and thought, well, gee, because my first bonus check was $4.58. And so it's quite a bit more than that now. But I remember thinking, you know, if I could earn $500 a month when Earl retires, then I would have that money to buy gifts for grandchildren, to go on trips and do those kinds of things. Little did I know where it was going to be. And I think that's the thing that I would like young people to think about today is you don't think you're going to get old. You don't think you're going to not be able to produce as much as you did back in the beginning. And so planning ahead is really good. You really need to think about how are you going to handle those years. I can't do some of the things that I used to do. I mean, I used to get in the car and drive 300 miles to a meeting and think nothing of it. I don't do that now. I don't want to do that now. But younger people can do that if that's what they choose. But planning ahead so that you have that in your retirement, I think is just.
That's how I always viewed my Shaklee business. And I've talked to my children about that because, and even Bridget, who's here now, was saying that it's also not so much what you make, it's what you keep. With our business in our home, we get to keep more than if I were employed with someone else because of all the tax deductions. So a six-figure income is probably, you could add another 20% or more to that six-figure income or more based upon all the deductions.
Right.
So I want to hear the story about your people contact, so if you were to, guide Lauren and say, Lauren, these are the most important elements for you to build your business. And those of you that may be looking at this conversation and recording and seeing all the benefits that are available to everyone, by the way. It's not just available to a few people. There's no restriction on who you are, where you were born, how much education you had. You really have, anyone it's open to. What kind of guidance would you give?
I think the very first step in our new member or new distributor or business builder training is to completely use the products, fall in love with them, be their greatest fan. And then you feel confident. Embrace the philosophy. We have a requirement that everyone read the Shaklee story before they launch their business, because we want them to understand Dr. Shaklee's philosophy, how this company was founded on good Christian, integrity-driven principles, and that you just, and I guess probably the number one requisite that I'm looking for is people that like people. If they're kind and they really genuinely like people. We just sponsored a young woman here in our complex. We're at a 55 and above, and she's 58. So she's on the young end, but she is so excited, and she just is using everything. And we know she's going to be successful because she wants the benefits, but she wants to help people. And so to me, the fundamentals are never going to change. You have to love the products. You have to be willing to talk to people and be willing to be patient with them, because the time is not always right for them. But we never close the door. We just always say, maybe now is not the time, and go to the next one. And don't take it personally. And of course, we swear by the Nistico 5-tab notebook. That's the first tool they have to get. And we've enlarged a little bit on what they're doing in those different tabs, just so that it really becomes their workbook.
I'd love to see that. You have to share it with me.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, and I actually have not shown Lauren the 5-tab notebook yet. That's something we can work on, Lauren, together to recreate in a process. We work, tomorrow we're having a huddle with a group of other Shaklee builders that we started and that are doing different activities. It's a great reminder for something I created many years ago that actually helped me make Master Coordinator. And it's very simple, though. It's so simple, it could be called stupid. Simple. But that's,
well, people say to me when I start working with them in training, there's still a lot of first grade teacher in you. And I think that people want to be told what to do. They don't want to be bossed, but people are used to working a job and being told what they have to do. And so then when you just suddenly say, well, this is your business, you can do whatever you want to. And they're like, yeah, but what do I do? And so
yeah.
the guidance and that's where between the 5-tab notebook and our bolt sheet, that's pretty much it. And one of our sales leaders developed 10 steps to leadership, and I'll share that with you too sometime.
Thank you. Well, if you share them, we'll have them available with this recording for anybody who might be interested. Okay. Share your story about the people contact.
Well, back in when we had made Key Coordinator, and the plan was a little different then for those of you who are new. To be a key, you had to have 9 first levels. And to be a master, you had to have 15. And so back in 1969, in January, I looked at our organization, and the trip was to Vienna, Austria. And I knew if I didn't do something different, I wasn't going to be going to Vienna. And we never missed a trip. So I thought, well, I have to get busy. Our oldest son was in college. Our second son was graduating from high school, and our daughter was a freshman in high school. We had just built a new dental office and had moved in. And so I said, well, I have to do something different. I have to do more people content. So I started out in January, and in 90 days, I did 291 presentations using a sheet that I drew out, which now has evolved into the Volt sheet. But I went to everybody that was already sponsored, that was using products. I went to new people. I had really presented the opportunity to a lot of those people. And so I just made appointments. If they stopped to pick up something, I sat them down for 10 minutes. And those presentations were only 7 to 10 minutes. And it was kind of a screener. And from that, we built 6 first levels in 5 months. And we became master coordinator in May of 1979. I only was trying to get on the trip. But because the momentum got going and people got engrossed in the process, we grew much more than we even anticipated. And so it's really seeing the people. And I really believe it doesn't matter so much what you say, it's how you say it. You can say the wrong thing to the right people and they're excited. And you can say the right thing to the wrong people and they just space you off. So yeah, it's just a matter of sorting.
And I think, it's your belief and your passion and your feeling for people that make a difference, as you know and I know. There was a current story you were also going to mention that you met someone. Was that, I thought you had mentioned that you had met someone you just recently met that you were going to share a little story on. But maybe I was wrong.
It might have, earlier today.
Yes.
We were at the bank and Earl was in the bank and I was sitting in the car. And when he got out to go in the bank, there was a young woman at the ATM machine and she started to walk down and Earl was getting out of the car with his cane and she was kind of there and she was afraid he was going to fall or something. And then she realized that she didn't have her mask on because she was just going to the ATM. So she kind of backed off and watched to see if she could help him. And I'm guessing she's maybe 25. I don't know, but that's just kind of a guess. And so I parked and she came over to the car. I was parked next to her and she said something to me. She asked me to roll my window down and I did. And she said, I was so afraid your husband might fall. I wanted to help him, but then I realized I didn't have my mask on. And I said, well, that was really kind of you. And she said, my grandpa, and then she told me the story about her grandfather and her grandmother. Her grandmother had just died and she was going to take her grandpa and they had raised her. And I just kept asking her some questions. She just got married in March, 2 days before they quarantined everybody. Her husband is in the military and she hasn't seen him since 2 days after they got married. He's in Florida. He's going to be transferred to Virginia and she wants to go with him, but they have to go through the paperwork. And so she's telling me all this. And I said, well, what do you do to make some money now? And she's a professional swimming teacher and she teaches Navy SEALs and all kinds of people to swim. And so we talked a little bit about that. And I said, well, what are you doing to make some money? And she said, so I'm unemployed now. I said, what are you doing to make some money? And she said, well, I'm walking dogs, I'm babysitting, I'm house cleaning, I'm doing anything I can. And I said, well, that's really interesting. You seem to be really outgoing and friendly. Would you be interested in looking at something that you could do anywhere? When you join your husband, you don't have to live in Texas and you could do it from home. She said, oh, yes. She said, if I could do something from home, I would love that. And I said, well, we're involved with nutrition. And she said, well, that's even better. And then I said, and I make 6-figure income. I'm really interested, she said. So she gave me her name, her phone number, and her email address.
Oh, well, there's a master at work, Lauren.
I'm going to send you a little video. And she said, I'll watch it.
That's fabulous. What a great example. We can close on that beautiful presentation there because that's exactly, you cared enough to have a conversation. You cared, she cared enough, which was even more important
Yeah.
about your husband. You got to hear her story. You shared your story. She was interested. Now, could have turned the other way that she wasn't interested, which would have been okay too. You know, it's just connecting, and what a great story. Everyone who's going to hear this tips from the top. This is a master at work. She knows how to care about people. She knows how to give stories, and she knows how to win trips.
Yeah. I love
cars.
the travel.
Yes.
And
Well,
the money's not too bad.
oh, it's
You know,
marvelous.
the key thing is having people. I have a longtime member that her daughter just contacted me, and this lady is 100 years old, and she orders 4 core other things, but she always orders 4 core energy, and her core energy got lost. And so I contacted Shaklee, and Shaklee sent her four more core energy at no cost. And they are just delighted and think Shaklee is wonderful. And that's
Her
where
energy at 100.
100, she takes core energy.
Oh, my kind of gal.
Right. When I grow up, I want to be like her.
Exactly. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much. Tell Earl he can come back in the room, that we missed him. And I'm so glad you're happy in your new place.
Yes, we are. We are. It was the right decision.
Good, good. Thanks
And
very
good
much.
luck to you, Lauren. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
And I'll be interested in hearing your story.
She has a really interesting story. We really hit it off and connected. I'm very lucky to have her in my life. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
You too.